There's history here.
And here.
There's history there.
History is everywhere.
How many of you know your grandparents? How many of you know your great-grandparents? How many know your great-great-grandparents? How many know your third great-grandparents? Fourth great-grandparents? No of them know who they are. Okay, good. Well, yeah, if you know them, I want to see you afterwards. What I'm doing this for is when your hand went down, that's the brick wall that you're trying to figure out, right? There's somebody you're trying to find. And what I tell people is this: I was adopted, found both of my parents. Now, I want you to put yourself in that situation and become the child of the people you don't know. Now, what is that going to do for you when you start that search for that person? Are you going to be a little more persistent about it? Oh, that's my great-great-grandfather George. His parents. Well, you know what? When you start saying, I'm George and I want to know who my parents are, guess what? The energy gets into the search. It really, truly does. Have you ever thought about that? Be the children of the people you can't find. That's me. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about myself, and I'll be running over there to push the buttons here in a few minutes. I was born in April of 1951 in Portland, Oregon, in a closed adoption. I was then surrendered to Albertina Kerr Adoption Agency in Portland. They handled a lot of illegitimate births at that time. In the 40s and 50s, adoption really took off. That was something that wasn't done so much before then, but that became the trend. And a lot of people adopted children for various reasons. My parents, I didn't come from a good adoption, I'm just going to tell you that. I believe my parents adopted us more to look good. They wanted to be the all-American. You know, you got to have two kids, a boy and a girl, father and mother. That's the perfect family, right? Right? Well, a lot of people did that. And a lot of adoptions are good. I'm not saying they aren't. Mine and my sister's was not a good adoption. So I'm going to run you through a few pictures of me growing up so you can get used to who I am. And if you see some pictures that are really cute, I want you to go, oh. Everybody say that, please. Oh. Okay, yeah, I'm going to hire you all to go with me on my next speaking assignment. So here we go. I've categorized these. This is my adoption, and I'm not going to talk about the pictures a lot, except that there's something that's germane to the story. Oh, that's not good enough. Do it again. Okay, there you go. That's all I've heard since I've been talking. This picture is right after I was adopted. It's in the book. Now let me tell you about this picture, and you're going to see what you read below the picture. You'll have a sentence. This was what my adopted mom said to me when I was 5, and this is the first thing I can remember hearing. She said, I want you to know that you're adopted. It's good, right? And then she said, we can take you back anytime we want to. Now that's not what children want to hear. When you're 5, you believe your parents, don't you? Yeah. So for many years thereafter, I thought, I better do things just the way she wants it or she's going to take me back. And even though she said that when I was about 5 to 10, she said that. And then she didn't have to say it anymore because she had me trained. And so this is the way. So I'm going to show you these pictures just to get to know me up until the time I left home and got married. Yeah, it is cute. They're cute. You're supposed to say, you're not supposed to laugh at that one. That's a cute picture too. That's my adopted mom's cousin. This is at the house. I was adopted in Portland to a couple that lived in Southwest Portland. Southwest Portland is a pretty upper middle class area. So if you looked at it on paper, you'd say, wow, great family. But when you get into the reality of it, different. I didn't write the story. I'm not here to talk about that a whole bunch. I'm just setting the groundwork for what you're going to see. That's when I was about 2. I look at these and I go, what happened? I just do, because I say, that is a cute kid, and my wife still says she likes me, but I don't know. Oh, by the way, my wife Diana's here, and then the guy next to her is a story that I'll get to in a while. This is when I was about 6. Now, one of the things about DNA, excuse me, I've got a little frog in my throat, is that it passes down gestures, mannerisms, speech patterns, the way we hold our hands. Looks obviously is something you look for, but it's not always the case on looks. That's just one of many things that happens with DNA. This is when I was 12. Now, do I look real happy in that picture? Well, a little bit, thank you. That makes me feel better. Yeah, this is up in Seattle, Shoshone Bay, if you've ever been there. This is, now I told you I was in music. We did the Music Man when I was 16 in high school. I was in the barbershop quartet. And that was my start, and it really got me going in music at that point. I'd been playing piano. And the interesting thing is when I talk about my music, you heard that I was a professional musician. Neither one of my adopted parents, the music was not a real strong suit for them. They say, well, where did that come from? Friends would say, where does it come from? And I said, I don't know. This is when I graduated from high school. This is my adopted mom. This is when we were down at the beach. I think I was that summer, 18. Now, I directed the U.S. Army Choir over in Europe. There's a picture of it. People asked me, I finally found a picture. I included that in the show. Now, this is, in 1977, I played the leading role in the Magic Flute. I was Tamino. Anybody seen the Magic Flute by Mozart? Oh, y'all got to see it. Yeah, my wife raised her. Anyway, it was before 15,000 people in an amphitheater. So I was trained as a musician. Classical, opera, voice, piano. Now, we're going to start on the trip. Here we go. There were two phases to my search. The first phase is finding my mom. And that's what most adoptees start out with, is finding their mom. So I started on that. In 1995, I put in my name in the birth registry at Albertina Kerr in case she'd done the same. Because if a mom, a birth mother, and adoptee sign up to meet each other, in that time, they would have put us together. Well, nothing happened. I paid 25 bucks, did it, forgot about it for 3 years, and then Oregon came up with a ballot initiative that would allow all adoptees access to their original birth certificate. Did you know about that?
Yeah.
It's one, are you, well, okay, yeah, they do. So they do. They did that. Voters passed it in 1998. However, there were 4 birth mothers that decided to oppose it, so it went into several court battles. And a good friend of mine and my wife's, Susan Baird, who became my editor for the book, she'd been pushing me for years along with my wife to go searching for they said, you'll feel better if you find them. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to. Does anybody know why adoptees might not want to search for a parent?
No. Yeah, the parent might reject you.
Parent might reject, what else?
My turn said they had enough problems.
They had enough problems. Okay. Can I see you outside? Well, there's 3 or 4 things. One is the adoptee, when they view a search like this, they'll never find them. Okay? A lot of emotions involved in search, okay? Second, when they do find them, will they be dead? Or will they be living and do not know, nobody in their family knows that they had a baby? They go to the door to meet them and they're rejected. So those are the big ones that adoptees face, and I did too. So my friend Susan said, well, why don't you just pay your money to Oregon, and when it passes, they'll send you your birth certificate. So I paid my money in and waited, and in 2000, June of 2000, I was one of the first people to receive my original birth certificate. What was I thinking? What do you think I was thinking at that time? Wow, this is great, right? I said, I don't know if I want to open this. Because what happens when you read the information, it changes everything. Because if your birth name's, a lot are Baby Smith or whatever, but I had a full name, which usually indicates the birth mother wanted to keep you. If they give you a full name, that is an indication mom wants to keep you, but for some reason she couldn't. So my family's going, open it up, open it up. I'm going, okay. And I just took opened it up, pulled out the birth certificate, and I saw my birth name, Richard Allen Blackstone. Well, that was a revelation to me because I didn't know that. And then the name of the mother, Nancy Ann Blackstone, and she was from Corvallis. Now, what university is in Corvallis? Yeah. So was she a student at was she a student at the college, place of residence? I didn't know any of this. So we had that. So we began to look. I went down to Corvallis to find the address, and I went to the county courthouse. Son of a gun, Percy Blackstone was the first purchaser of that property. That was her father. He purchased 3 lots, and the middle one was where the house was. I was so excited. I found the house. So what does that tell me about her? She was probably a resident of Corvallis. So that's a good thing. Then my wife and I went down. Okay, so we'll start doing this because if I don't, we'll... Okay, this is my pre-adoption. And I'll tell you something, folks, when you get it, the only things that have been changed are the parents' names. Your post-adoption birth certificate has your adopted parents' information. So what they did is they gave me the original Nancy Ann Blackstone's on there. If you see pre-adoption record in the red up there, that's the dad's name. So my dad's name is pre-adoption. No, I'm just kidding. But that's where it is. It's a pre-adoption record. All right. So, anybody know where this is? It's Corvallis, 1950. Now, I was going to call the book Conceived in Corvallis, but I thought that was a little too dicey, so we went for paper instead. Now, this is downtown. People, I just spoke in Corvallis Saturday, and they all go, oh, this is Corvallis. They all knew this was Corvallis. Well, that's what it looked like the year I was conceived. Now, we went down to the high school, next step, and Diana and I went down there, and we decided to look at yearbooks. Now, originally, guess what I wanted to find out? I wanted to know my family's health records. I want to know what their health records about what things they had, right? That's what adoptees want to know, is the medical records, right? No. What they really want to know, and I had one relative confront me and said, that is a lie. And when I finally got down to where the truth was, I realized I wanted to meet them. But you know, as an adoptee, you don't know what you're going to get, so you don't dare go there. Well, we found, this is her 1950 yearbook. That's my mom's yearbook year. And I found it first. We were looking 48 to 52, and I found her picture. There she is. Now, what changed in my mind, sorry, I get a little emotional sometimes, but is I wanted to meet her now. You know how pictures, when you're doing genealogy, pictures can change. You can read everything you want, but to see the picture, there's my birth mother. So I wanted to meet her at this point if she was still alive. Now, here's in the yearbook, we talked about music. Here's a group of girls at a piano. You see the really good looking one, third from the right on the back row? That's my mom. I found out she was one of the top singers in her high school choirs. Her father, I found out, was a choir director and a tenor soloist. And her mother was a pianist. Okay, so there's the music, but not quite. I'm not done yet. Okay? This is another one. She's sitting right in the bottom there in the middle. That's mom again. Now, paper and pictures. We began to put things together. We had pictures now, didn't we? So the next step was we had to find out if we could get any information on what we knew. So I went to Oregon Adoptive Rights, which is a group at that time that helped adoptees with search angels and search people. Well, we met a search angel, and she said, give me what you've got, and I will see what I can find. So the next day, she had found my grandparents' names, birth dates, and all that, death dates and everything. She said, check on your grandmother first. So her name was Audrey Blackstone. And I found out she died in 1992, July 2nd, 1992. So I had information. So guess where I went? I went to the Oregonian to look at archived newspapers. See, this is a genealogy story too. So I get down there, and within 3 minutes I found her, and this is what blew me away. Audrey Blackstone died in Happy Valley, Oregon. Now we live 3 miles away from Happy Valley. We did. And I'm going, how is this possible when they're in Corvallis? Well, then we looked at the kids. There was Margaret, my mom's older sister. Then there was Nancy, my mom. And then Tom was the younger brother. Margaret lived in Portland. Nancy lived in Fontana, California. And Tom lived in Santa Rosa, where all the fires have been. They're safe. We checked them. They're okay. Well, I started looking for my mom. That's the obvious choice, isn't it? Maybe. Yes. Maybe. Okay, I started with my mom because I really didn't know what to do. I just thought there's the obvious. Well, I looked her up in Fontana, no forwarding address. We couldn't find her. She was gone. Did she die? Did she move away? So then I started looking at Tom because I'd always wanted an uncle that I was close to. And then something said, no, you're looking for the wrong person. Go look for Margaret. Why? Why should I look for Margaret first? Anybody know? Sister. Yeah, but she lives in Portland. Her address, she was located in Margaret Robnett of Portland. So I said, okay, let's do that. So my friend Susan had gone onto the internet. She got every Blackstone in the United States, addresses, phone numbers. She got all that for me. And then what we did is we pared it down to Oregon. And I found a Margaret Blackstone Robnett that lived 3 miles away from me. Yeah, I'll write that one down in your book. Anyway, but yes, 3 miles away from me. So guess what? I went to look for this house. Once I had the address, it was uncanny. I had driven down that street hundreds of times. We went to church down by that. Now I was starting to take creative trips to Winco. I would go by her house to go to the grocery store rather than just go to the grocery store. I like the scenic. I wanted to find her. So I went through and I found her house, and I about went off the road, and nobody was home. Oh no, there was somebody home. I backed that up. There was somebody home. There was this nice looking lady, older lady, sitting in the living room reading the newspaper. But I wasn't ready to go see her yet. Because when you go contact family for the first time, you got to know what you're going to say. I guarantee. In fact, it's one of the things I talk about with groups is what do you say? That's a really important part of this, folks, when you make a contact. So I went home and I said, I found her. Well, then I decided to go by, and maybe the next time they were there. Well, this was during Christmas vacation. They were gone for 7 days. I went by that house every day and I said, boy, if I were there, I'd knock on that door and I'd be going up there talking to her. Well, after 7 days, I went by on the 7th day, and there was a car in the driveway and they were home. I called my wife, said, Diana, they're home. You ready to go? All that bravery went out the window at that point. I seriously almost didn't want to go. It was 1:45 in the afternoon, so I go home and pick her up. And we have all my paperwork. Mind you, got to have all that paperwork, right? You don't want to be a scam. You don't want to say this and you're lying to them. So I take my birth certificate, we get in the car, we drive up there, park next to the other car, we get out, Diana's right behind me, we go up the door, and I've got it ready. I've got the paperwork ready. Now, I had worked on 3 things to say. Is Margaret home? Yeah, I got to have something to say here. Do you have a sister named Nancy? And she's my birth mother. That is all I had prepared, but that's all I could think of to do. So we get to the door. Oops, I'll do it down here. Footsteps, opens the door. Can I help you? And I said, yes, is Margaret home? Well, I'm Margaret. There's one. Do you have a sister named Nancy? Yes. There's 2. And I said, she's my birth mother, and here's the proof, here's the, I didn't want to think I was trying to scam her or anything. So I held it up there, and she says, I knew this day would come. Would you please come in? Oh. Now how many times does that happen? Yeah. Okay, so I'm walking in, and now I have nothing more to say. I'm not prepared, and my wife knows I can talk all the time. I'm a big talker. She's shaking her head back there, and I was speechless. She loved it. She loved it because I wasn't able. So she said, why don't you sit over here on the couch, and I'll call my husband, and he's out chasing a mole in the backyard. And he had a gun. And I thought, he's going to come into that. She's just going to take me out right now so we don't go any further. So he comes in, big smile on his face, and says, oh, hi, I got to change out of my dirty clothes. I'll be right back. Well, that dirty rat went into the bedroom, grabbed his camera, and came out and started taking pictures. What's going on here? I've read so many reunion stories, and this is nothing. You don't hear them like this. And finally, he quit taking pictures, and he sat down next to Margaret, and we kind of discussed Nancy, and I said, did you guys know about me? Oh, we all knew after you were born. In fact, I found out later that Margaret actually went to the hospital and held me. That's what you're right. That really got me, too. So I said, well, I have a question. Margaret, would you be willing to be the go-between? And when adoptees are looking for family, it's always better to go to a sibling or a cousin or someone else first, because they can kind of break the news to the parent. You go to your mom and say, hi, I'm your son. They're going to shut the door. Whatever they do. So I asked her, and my Uncle Jim, her husband, he said, do you want to call her or should I? And she said, oh, I'll call her. Now, who are you going to call, So she goes into the kitchen. She grabs the phone. Hi, Nancy. This is Margaret. Are you sitting down? Yeah, your birth son's here. He's married. He's got 4 kids, and he's in music. Would you like to talk to him? So she did that. She did that. She handed me the phone. Now, you knew I didn't have anything prepared. I was like a deer in the headlights kind of thing. Hi, Nancy, how are you? Well, I'm fine. She says, I'm nervous. She said, oh, there's nothing to be nervous about. This will be just fine. And we kind of broke the ice. We talked for a bit. Now, before you go, I want Margaret to give you a big hug and kiss for me. This is not in the manual. I'm tossing anything I've read. Okay, so I hand the phone to Margaret. They talk a bit and they hang up. And she comes back and she says, I was told to give you a big hug and kiss before you leave. And I'm just blown away. Is this what we normally would expect with it? Nah, that's right. So in 10 minutes from knocking on the door, I was talking to my mom. That's got to be a record. So you're hearing it from me. So before we left, a couple things Margaret said. She said, we've got warts. What? We've got warts. What she was saying, she said, we're not perfect. And I said, well, great, I'll fit right in with this one. Secondly, she said, you know, this makes me your aunt. And you know what? I hadn't even thought about that. What was I focused on? We do this in genealogy all the time. We look vertical, don't we? We don't look this way. Some of our best finds come from the sideways, going sideways. She said, it makes me your aunt. And I said, well, it does. You're my aunt, yes. And she gave me a big hug and kiss. And then as we left, she said, now you're welcome back here anytime you want to come. Now that was not what I was expecting. So 9:30 that night, we're getting ready for bed and the phone rings. Diana comes in, she says, Nancy's on the phone. And I said, Nancy who? Nancy, your birth mother, you know. Okay, here's how this went. This is totally off the record. Now, I found out that my mom she liked jazz and she really liked some kinds of music. We talked about that in our conversation. Hello? Do you like jazz? What? Where's the hell? Oh, I didn't get help. Yes, I listened to jazz. It's not my absolute favorite, but I listened to it. And then she said something that was off the wall. She said, do you like kung fu movies? My parents, my adopted parents, this isn't what we do. I mean, she's actually interested in me with this. I said, I've seen them. You know that actor, Jean-Claude, and I said, Jean-Claude Van Damme? You all know who that is, right? She said, oh yeah, he's hot. Well, okay, this is the way this is starting out, so you can see, why was she doing, anybody have an idea why she was asking me these questions? Anybody know?
To see if you had the same interest.
Yes, she was looking to find something that we could connect on. She was reaching out to me, and I'd never had this happen. She was actually proactive, and now that she'd known, she said, you know what, I've called all my friends, and they're so excited, and I really want to see you. When can we get together? We determined we're going to get together spring vacation that year. So we made arrangements to drive down. She says, when you get here, I'll wait for you to find me. So I go over to Margaret's house a week later and knock on the door. This time was a lot easier. I wasn't all nerved up about it. So she invited me in. She says, I want to share something with you. She had taken all the family photograph albums and laid them out on the table for me to see the whole family. She had taken and handwritten everybody's name, address, and phone number from everybody in the family. Now, what does that tell you about Margaret? She trusts me. You don't just give that stuff out. I'm just like giving out the farm here. And then that's when she said, I want you to know when you're a week old. Jim and I came to the hospital and I got to hold you. She said, I fell in love with you right away. You saw those pictures. Who wouldn't? I don't know about now. If I came to her door now and she... Anyway. Well, anyway. So she said, I held you and I fell in love with you, and then I realized I was starting to bond with you, and I had to forget about that because we thought we'd never see you again. And it just, you know, that would really get you. You think about that. Look at the love that's being displayed here, and I'd never really felt this. This is all new to me, and so I'm still pinching myself. I was black and blue from all the pinching, you know. So we went down spring vacation, went down to Vallejo, California. That's where we found her. Oh, and I also had a half-brother. I wanted a brother, and I found out she had another child. So we get down there, we get to the hotel, I call Nancy, I said, we're here. She said, come right on over, it's 9:30 at night, so come on over. So we did, and we get down to the street, and it's dimly lit, can't see any house numbers, and I'm getting frustrated. Drove up, down 2 or 3 times, and I said, Nancy told me that she would have a way for me to find her. Well, come on, lady, it's about time, where is it? So, okay, I opened the car door to get out and search. I said, I'll be right back, and I opened the car door, and Frank Sinatra is playing in the street singing jazz. She turned up her stereo and she had that thing cranked up. Only Nancy would have done this at 9:30 at night in Vallejo, California. So it was easy. I turned to my left and looked up, and there was a door open with a screen shut, and I said, that's got to be her. So we got out of the car. We had our youngest son with us. We went up to the door, looked in the screen, and here's this lady sitting in a rocking chair with Kleenex in her lap. She sees me, smiles, gets up, runs over, opens the door, hands me the Kleenex, and we hug, and I said, it's good to see you. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not crying, I don't need the Kleenex. She goes, doggone it, I went to Safeway and bought those today and you're not even going to use them. So we sat down. Now we were there for a few minutes, and she said, would you like to meet your brother? yeah, you wait to hear this one. And I said, sure, because Nancy had it all. Some of my creativity, I think, came from her. But I said, yeah, we'd like to meet my brother. When are we going to do that? She said, right now. He lives next door. Nobody told me that little detail. So we go out the door and we go 20 feet down, knock on the other door. Now, I will tell you that she had been married to African-American guys, so he was mixed race. So, and that's, I'm just telling you that. So if you read the book, you'll get that kind of, but not totally. So, I knock on the door and this guy opens the door. He's 6'3", 320. And here's this little small white guy. He grabs me, how you doing, man? I can't see, I can't breathe, I can't, And then we met his wife, Vicki, and her sister and husband. And guess what? Their family had planned a big party for us to celebrate our coming down. Now, this is not the way reunion stories go. I'm just telling you this. You're shaking your head. It's all true. I promise you it is. You can call my brother. I'll give him your number. I give you his number. Okay, so that's the story of finding my mom. Now, what question do you think I wanted to ask my mom at this point? Okay, I'm going to show you some pictures so I don't get too far away. These are pictures of my maternal family. That's my mom when she was a baby. She's cute, yeah. That's my grandfather. He is, he really is. I thought I got some of those looks when I was young, but I'm not sure. Here's the next one. That's when he was graduated from high school. That's my grandmother. Yeah, they were pretty people. I mean, yeah, okay. This is, the one on the left is Dudley Do-Right. That's my grandfather in World War I. This is my grandmother holding Margaret, who held me as a baby. So I kind of say that's my grandmother holding me because Margaret held me and she was held by her mother, Audrey. There's my Aunt Margaret. These are all high school yearbook pictures. This is my uncle Tom. This is my brother Malcolm. He and I are so close now, man. He's a good guy. Now this is when we first met. Malcolm's on the right, on the left, there's Mom. So it was really a happy, it's been happy, it still is happy. Reunion. Okay, now finding my dad. And this is why a lot of you are here. You want to hear about this. And I definitely want to plug it in. So I found my mom. Everything's happy. Everything's great, right? Everybody says, aren't you so glad you found your mom? Well, one of the things I asked Nancy when I first met her was who the father was. And she said, honey, I don't remember his name, but he's Native American heritage. Well, there's something, huh? And I looked at it, and the adoption agency sent me a document that said my father had Indian blood, but didn't know how much or what tribe. So we had some documentation that led me to believe this could be true. Well, we tried several times, gently over a period of years. She passed away in 2007 without ever telling me who the dad was. Now, for an adoptee, I'm going to tell you something. We always see these shows where they find the birth mother, excuse me, and everything is great. Well, I think adoptees think they've got all that they can get and they're not going to go on. A lot of adoptees just stop after birth mother. Well, now what I was looking at is, here's one side of my family tree. It's got all sorts of leaves and fruit and everything. This side's totally bare. And I had this hole the size of my birth father. I was still looking at it. And it became more apparent because Mom was found. When Mom wasn't found, I had just a big old hole. Now I had this hole. Have any of you put together a puzzle with like 1,000 pieces and you get to the end, you can't put the rest? Well, we had a 1,500 piece puzzle of Great Britain and Ireland and the fishes and the ocean, everything. We got it all done, and there were 1,480 pieces that were done, and there were 20 pieces we could not figure out how they went together. Guess what I looked at every time I went by the refrigerator? The whole puzzle or the pieces. Yeah, I looked at the whole. And that was a lot like my search. So I looked around. Finally, under a chair that I didn't think about looking, I found the two pieces that put the total 20 together. And I go, that's my problem right there. I'm missing those key elements. And in genealogy, you all do that. You get somewhere and you get to a brick wall and you go, well, we're close. We're close. So, I took a DNA test, Y verification. This was in 2007. You got it in the mail. You got your results in the regular snail mail, not on computer. So what they do is they test 12 markers of Y chromosome. And we're looking for my dad, so that works out perfectly. And then what they do is when they get the results, they send them to you. And what they do is they'll tell you generally where your father's from. So I got my results and I opened them up and I was 100% European. That did not sit well with me. I told my wife and kids, I'm never DNA testing ever again. I'd had it. So for the next 6 years, everything went into the back of my mind. And then my wife and I went shopping for a car on Halloween, 2013. If you want to buy a new car, go on Halloween. There is nobody in the dealership except the salespeople. Well, the best salesperson, we did find a car, was my wife. Honey, I saw a program on TV where an adoptee took 2 DNA tests. The first one, he thought he was Native American, and he turned out not to. He tested again with the new test, and it proved he was a quarter Native American. So I'm being sucked in on this. We go home and we watch the show. It's called Generations Project, for any of you that may know that program. And sure enough, at the end of the show, the second test, he opened it up for his family, and it says, I'm a quarter Indian. I did it. I found it out. Well, that did it. I said, okay. She wanted me to do the ancestry test. So I bit. I bought my ancestry test. This were you've seen the results on Ancestry, right? Can anybody read what the first one is? If you can, I'll tell you. Ireland, 46%. Are you kidding me? And then the next one was 33% Great Britain, 12% Scandinavia, 4% European West, 3% Iberian Peninsula, 1% Finnish Russian, and 1% Middle Eastern. And I'm out of numbers. That's 100%. And I didn't have any Native American, and I was ticked. You know what I used to do? I still do this. I went over to Warm Springs Indian Reservation to be with my people every year. And I have to tell them I'm Irish, you know. So I called my kids. And I said, I need to let you know something. I'm not Irish, I'm Scottish. Dad, when you figure out who you are, you call us. Yes, Dave.
Did you use the Anderson name or the Blackburn name?
Well, when I was looking for my dad, so I didn't know my dad's name, so I used the Anderson names because I didn't have a dad's name to throw in there. Blackstone's not going to get me what I want to have. So anyway, Tyrone and I become good friends. In fact, we were just in Ireland a couple weeks ago, and he sat down with me. I gave him all my this was on a Y37 test, 37 markers. I've done the 111. I sent that all to him before we went to Ireland. He said, I've got news for you, and I have an update that's not included in it. I go, I don't want any more updates because they keep sending me all over the world here. Anyway, so this is Tyrone Moses' deal. What he did, just very quickly, if you can look at this, there's colored sections in each of the places in Scotland. And the ones that had all the names on my surname list that were closely related, he was able to pinpoint southwest Scotland as where my dad was from. And he said the name was McCullough. So I ran with that. Oh, by the way, the week after I got my results, he came to Portland to do a seminar. I studied my results like son of a gun. When my wife and I went to his seminar, I was the only one that understood what he was talking about. You've gone to DNA classes, you don't get any of that. That's kind of where this was going. So I took all those McCullough names and I said, I'm going to write a letter to all the McCulloughs in the state of Oregon and ask them if they lived in Corvallis from 1940 to 1960. Right? Wouldn't that be a good thing to do? So I sent out 88 letters. I got 20 responses. 16 were by mail. 2 were by phone messages. Actually, the last 4 were. 3 of them said, I'm not your father. And then finally, the other ones, they didn't live there. But finally, the one guy says, I need to talk to you. So we talked. We found out in a short nutshell that his dad had been getting his graduate degree at Oregon State during the summer she got pregnant. His mom and he were down in Eugene with her parents. And the place where he lived was close proximity to my mom's home. Now, I'm making a big mistake here, and I'm going to tell you. Anybody know why I'm making a mistake thinking this is going that way? It's on circumstantial evidence, isn't it? Okay, don't ever do that. Don't go circumstances. Get your ducks in a row. So I talked to him. Well, he said, what do you do for work? And I said, I'm a musician. Oh, I'm doing a concert this next weekend. Could you come and listen? He's a musician. Has to be my half-brother. He would be my half-brother. So we went down, met him. He played the flute, he sang, he played the guitar. We got along, we just hit it off. He's a nice guy. And I said, would you do a DNA test for me? He said, well, let me look at it. I'll let you know. A week later, he said, yes, I will. Well, I already bought the test. Now, if you got somebody you want to have take a test, and you're going to pay for it, get it before they say yes, because a lot of times they will, or you can sell it to somebody else. So I mailed him the test. He took the test. 7 weeks later, hadn't heard anything. He calls me. He said, my results are in. Well, now, if he was my half-brother, on test results, where would he show up? At the very top of my matches list, okay? And he wasn't there, and I said, Alan, I don't show you. He said, we don't match. I almost quit. Because it was emotionally draining to go through that process. So then I met another person with Y testing named Connie Gillespie, and she was a project administrator for Family Tree DNA. She does the Gillespie project. And I submitted, what you can do when you take a Y test is submit your results to these different projects. I submitted it to hers, and I'm not going to go on too long with this, but Connie looked at my results and she said, I'm sorry, you're not a Gillespie. I had a lot of Gillespies on my name. She said, you're not close enough. But you're an adoptee and I want you to help. I want to help find your dad, so I'm going to keep you so I can work with you. With one condition, I'm going to make you work like a son of a gun. I'm going to send you research information, surveys, all this stuff. She wanted me to know what I was doing. She wasn't going to play with somebody who didn't want to work. I said, yes, I will. So I did, and she became a very good friend of mine. In fact, somebody else wanted to join the project, and she said, here, why don't you decide if he ought to belong to our project or not? So I looked at his results and I said, no, I don't think he's a good match for us. And she said, that's right. So she made me an administrator of her project, and she sent me to Houston, Texas. She sent me to Houston to Family Tree DNA to go to the seminars for 3 days. And I did. And I said, we're on the way, and I go, why am I here? I don't know enough to be here. But if you're going to learn DNA, you have to dive in there. So I did. And first class I went to, I sat down, and there was a lady from California sitting on my left, and she introduced herself, and she said, I'm a professional genealogist that helps adoptees find their families. I'm Don Anderson from Portland, Oregon, and I'm an adoptee looking for my dad. Oh, can I help you? She just started firing stuff, said, yes, but not all at once here. So anyway, for lunch, we sat at a big table. They put everybody at tables of 12 in this hotel. So I was at the one table, and they introduced themselves around, and the guy next to me, I'm the IT specialist, done professional genealogy, and I'm Don Anderson from Portland, Oregon. I'm looking for my dad. I'm an adoptee. It was like a feeding frenzy at a piranha convention. I mean, can I help you? I said, everybody knows what this means. I said, time. I said, thank you, but I can't. I just talk to me one at a time. It was way too much. Well, at the end of lunch, I saw a guy standing over in the corner. His name's Richard Hill. Has anybody read Finding Family? Okay, Richard was there, and he was alone. You know what I did? What do you think I did? I ran over to him and confronted him, and he is the first person we know of that wrote a book about finding a parent using DNA. So I went up to him and I asked him this question after I said this. I said, I'm Don Anderson, here's what I've done. I'm here trying to find my dad. Did you really find yours? Well, isn't that a stupid question to ask the guy who wrote a book about doing it? Why did I ask it? Anybody know why I would have asked him that? I want to hear from his lips. I want him to lie to me. No, I want him to tell me right there. Really? He said, yes, I did. And he said, what you're doing is going to lead you in the right direction. And he literally kept me going. Because I was ready to white knuckle out of this thing. There wasn't getting any place. The matches were dead ends. You know when you check with these people, you contact them, they don't contact you back? Has that ever happened? Yes. And then you get somebody who thinks they've got all the answers, and they don't? Well, got an exception to that. There was a guy named Robert Liguori. He's in the book. He's a good friend of mine. He's a good individual in New Jersey. He and I are 5th to 8th cousins, and he's trying to figure out his mother's line. He's mostly Italian, but he has one English line. So I'm saying, okay, let's look. Well, I compared him to my Uncle Tom, who had taken a DNA test, and one of my cousin's daughters, and he matched my Uncle Tom. So what does that tell me? Is he on my mom's side or my dad's side? He's on my mom's side because he matches my mom's brother. So I decided to do something. I had everybody on my mom's side take a DNA test, all of them. Now I knew them. Why in the heck would I have all my mom's side take a DNA test? Anybody know? That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I had them all test because anybody that came in and I threw that match up on the DNA wall and it didn't stick, guess what? It's on the dad's side. That's the way I started this process. I began a process of eliminating non-contenders. Okay, that became part of what I did. So I had everybody test. Uncle Tom, Aunt Margaret, all the kids, cousins. I had 11 of them on there that they all tested for me. I paid for 2. Now be prepared to pay for tests if you have somebody you want to have test and they don't offer to pony up. Just something to think about. Okay, so let's go on here. Now, talk about Robert. I want to talk a little bit about Robert before I tell you about this picture. Robert Liguori I was talking to him, he says, well, tell me about your dad's side. And I said, I don't know my dad's side, I'm adopted. We've got to find your father. And I'm going, what? You know, this is the most enthusiastic anybody's ever been. He has 2 half-sisters he found trailed, he found them. And so he said, we're going to find your dad. And you know how some people jump into something and they go for 2 weeks and then they drop out? He stayed with me until I found my father. Now, here's the deal. For the next 4 months, I continued moving forward. Robert got access to all my accounts and he'd contact people for me. We both were doing this. Hey, my cousin's looking for his dad, blah, 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 blah. He was doing this. And then what he did, bless his heart, every week he'd send me a new picture from Oregon State University's yearbooks with somebody that had a Scottish name, looked kind of like me. I sent him my high school yearbook picture. No, Robert, that's not it. No, that's not it. We kept doing it. Okay, I get home from a rehearsal, February 26, 2015, 10:30 at night. Walk in the door. I go get a glass of water, and I go right by the phone, and guess what? The message machine is blinking, and there are 4 messages on there. 4 messages on my phone. Now, what would you do at 10:30 at night? Would you push the button? Oh, you guys are suckers. You really are. You're as bad as I am. So what I did, you've got 4 messages. First message. Hi, this is Robert. I found your dad. Call me right away. Sure, he's done this before. Second message. Call me right away. This is Robert. I found your dad. All 4 messages were from him. Now, normally it was once a week. He did this. And then I got my water. I said, I'm not calling him tonight. It's 1:30 in the morning. So I go into my computer and open my PC to look at what? Emails. Don't ever do that. So I went in, and normally I get 1 a week from me. He had 43 emails on my computer. He's lost his mind. What is going on here? Well, the first one had a title of Open This One First. And I said, I am not touching this tonight. So I went to bed, got up the next morning, fixed my breakfast, got to my computer, opened up my emails, called Robert. We've been talking on the phone. I said, okay, Robert, what did you find? Open the first one. He's pretty consistent. He wanted me. Well, he had that. And what he had done, there's my high school yearbook picture. Now I'm going to go back. This is William McIntosh. Do you see a resemblance? Yeah, I was crying at this point. I was literally crying because I said, okay, Robert, I'm listening. He had broken an initial break. He put the initial breakthrough. So what happened is, and I'll put the next one on. There we are. He was born 100 years before me. And his name's William McIntosh. So what he had done, not only had he done that, but he started looking at all my family trees. He found 4 fourth cousin matches on Ancestry that matched each other, and they matched me. And they all had the name of McIntosh, and 3 generations, name, dates, and locations were identical. We'd found my 3rd great-grandfather, Donald Gilbert McIntosh. So from there, now then we tell you how this works, and then we're going to the rest of this, where we're going to use genealogy and DNA at its finest. So what happens is, we found those 4 McIntoshes. Well, I contacted them all and sent them these pictures so they knew who they were looking at here. And 2 of them offered to send this to me. This is a family history book, and I called one and we talked. She said, would you like a copy? It has all the family history from 1700 to 1987 for the McIntosh family. Yes, I'd like a copy of that. So they sent that to me. And when I looked at, they had everybody in it, so I took all the last names of everybody in the book, and I went into Ancestry and looked for family trees. I found 42 family trees that I was related to. That was really interesting in Ancestry. That's the beauty of Ancestry. All right, so we go on. I'll go into this in a second. We found 3 other DNA matches with the name Murray. Same scenario. They all matched me and each other, and same 2 or 3 generations. Well, we took the Murray name and we took the McIntosh name when we brought them down as far as we could genealogically. In 1925, a Keith McIntosh had married a Margaret Murray in Canada. Now where's my mom from? Where's my mom from? Corvallis. She's from Corvallis. She came to Portland to have me, but she's from Corvallis. Okay, so anyway, they owned creameries in Canada. In 1937, they moved to Corvallis. Now, this gets even better. Now, one of those cousins in 1899, so I'm going to ask you all to pay up on this one. He was brought down by the Tillamook dairy farmers, and he founded the Tillamook cheese family. Our family's recipe is the Tillamook cheese recipe to this day. So if you're eating any, I'm going to give you my name and phone number and get me a check. Will you just pay me? I actually went down to the cheese factory and I said, I want 3 things. I want a tour, I want back payments of ice cream, back payments of cheese. They gave me the tour. They gave me the tour. So that was the beginning of an unusual turn of events that happened. One of the things, this picture is in the I Am McIntosh book. This is my great-grandfather, Peter Howard McIntosh, his wife Margaret, and my great-uncle Robert. And this would become very apparent to me quite quickly. I had been in touch with the Benton County Genealogical Society and the museum. And they have a library of a whole bunch of stuff, phone books, yearbooks, all that stuff. So I gave her the name of McIntosh. She said, well, let me see what I can find. So we made arrangements for me to go down there. I'd been down before with McCullough and all this stuff. Well, I got there. You've seen Who Do You Think You Are? Finding Your Roots. You watch those? What do they do with the celebrities? They have them sit down and say, oh, well, here you go. Here's your tree of life. You know that thing? That's not the way this works. I've been working for months. She said, I have some things for you to look at. I'll be right back in a few minutes. And if you need help, I'll let you know. So she had phone directories. On the back of one of the phone directories was the McIntosh Dairy in Corvallis. They had the Green Valley Creamery. It was one of the biggest creameries in the area. And then I had their addresses and phone numbers. I had his obituary. They just loaded this up. And then on the bottom, there's my great-great-grandfather, Archibald Wilberforce McIntosh. Now, when you're looking for family ancestors, do you want Joe Smith or Archibald Wilberforce McIntosh? Which one do you take? So as crazy as that name is, I was thrilled because there's only one. I've never found another Archibald Wilberforce McIntosh. He is the only one on the entire planet. I think there are a few on Mars, but there are none here. There's the back of there's the creamery. This was in Corvallis on 3rd and Adams. I've been by there. It's torn down. It's no longer there, but it was the thing. This is the guy that started the Tillamook cheese factory, Peter Duncan McIntosh. In fact, when I first found the family, I thought my great-grandfather was the founder, but he was first cousins. They had all learned to make cheese in Ontario, Canada, and they brought their skills with them across Canada. This was the best for the last. This individual ended up being my dad. This is James Howard Stewart McIntosh, known as Stu McIntosh. She had put his senior yearbook on the bottom. So she made me go through all the rest, and there's his picture. Keith and Margaret McIntosh had 2 children. They had Jean, the daughter, and then they had Stu, the son. And they went, well, what I found out, and then the next thing we're going to go into here. Okay, this broke open how they knew each other. Well, how did my mom know my dad? And, we're getting all this stuff going there, but we want to know how they know each other. Well, I have my cousin's daughter lives in Corvallis, and the day I went down and got all that stuff at Benton County, she said, are you going to be down in Corvallis soon? I said, I'm coming down tomorrow. You need to come to my house. You need to sit down. I don't want to talk to you. You're going to look at what I found. I found Grandma's yearbooks. Now, this is Margaret's yearbooks. Okay? Okay, this always gets touchy with me. But anyway, I walked in. She said, sit down. So I did. And she had 3 or 4 yearbooks with sticky notes in them. So she said, open the first one. And I did. Well, that guy up there is McIntosh. You see him in the right-hand corner? Guess who signed my aunt's yearbook? Stu McIntosh. He signed her yearbook. Now, I was crying. I wasn't talking at this point. She said, now turn to the next one. So I went down. These are out of the yearbooks. He's the 3rd from the right in the back. That's my dad, Stu. I got to see him. There he is, okay? This is the orchestra. Now, this is when I said the music. Remember I talked about my music? My Aunt Margaret's in the back row on the right-hand side playing the cello. My dad's playing violin in the front row next to the end. If you don't think I was thinking. And I found that his sister Jean played cello with my Aunt Margaret. So I had both of my aunts playing cello in the same orchestra. My Aunt Jean went on to Stanford, first chair cello, sang opera. Do I need to say more? They had pianos in their home. I learned all sorts of stuff. Okay, now here's the one where, this is my Aunt Margaret. That's my Aunt Jean. So I had physical proof, a visual, that they were together. I knew that. And my Aunt Margaret said, yes, they were friends. So what do families do when there's a school concert in a small town? Do they all go? They do. So do you think the families knew each other? I'm hoping to shout they do.